Miss Shamika, it's so good to talk with you. We are on the virtual world like most of the world has been for a while now. But I'm so excited to get to talk with you today about supporting kids in their education because we're going back to school in just a couple weeks. That's part of our job is to support kids and help them figure out what they might need in their education. Can you tell me like what are some reasons that you see kids needing support in school?
A lot of the things that I see with kids needing support is someone that they feel like can listen to them and understand maybe where they do have some difficulty and what that looks like. Being able to um, help them with maybe being able to connect to other peers. So maybe ways that they are not so sure about themselves, but learning how to interact with other peers, nervousness, wanting to kind of fit in, but not sure what that looks like. And a lot of the support that they get, if they do get support, is not necessarily what they feel like they need. It's the teachers feel like this is what I need, or my parents say this is what I need, but no one hears what I'm saying I need.
I think what you just said is so important because none of the stuff that you said are the things that I think so many parents would think kids need support with. They would
Mhm.
say, my kid needs more support learning how to focus or learning how to sit still. The educational side is probably less important to the kid
Yes.
and
It's
more
a
the
creative
environment.
stressor.
Yes,
Yes.
the stressors. There you go. So, because school is stressful, it's so
Yes.
stressful. And not just, again, not just the grades, but like trying to make friends, trying not to be uh, cast out, trying to keep friends. I mean, keeping friends is so hard.
As each individual, kid figuring out who they are. And, you go through, especially now, we've gone to a world where they didn't have that interaction. They didn't have that for over a year and a half. And so trying to figure out who they are when they go back to school and what that's supposed to look like and, being okay with that is a whole other layer that none of us, when we were in school, had to deal with
Yeah,
in some areas. So those are added stressors for sure.
absolutely. And I think one of the things that is those kids who are struggling the most with the social things and the anxiety, the stress, some depression, stuff like that. Some of those kids are also the ones who are struggling the most with their grades and their uh, taking a test or standardized testing or even just functioning in a classroom. All those things can be really, really hard. And so it sounds to me, and this is kind of a new way of thinking, but what if we need to start thinking of low grades and tough behaviors in the classroom and things like that as symptoms, not as the problem themselves. The problem is probably much, much larger than that. And so if you just target that one thing, it might fix that one thing, but then the larger problem is going to pop up somewhere else. What are some ways then that you think parents or teachers can notice kids who might need more support in different ways?
One of the quickest ones would be isolation, depending upon per kid, but that can look like aggression, that can look like just completely not doing the work in class, that can look like what they identify as like a class clown. So joking around or trying to get the attention of other peers. Um, sometimes they just simply walk out of class or they're sleeping. So anything where it doesn't really look like they're engaged in what they're supposed to be doing. There's some
Especially
ways
if
that
that's a change.
yes, yes. So any large change, and then at home, depending on what that again, it's going to be another change of what their normal behavior is, but just not doing homework, not wanting to maybe really engage with the parent. If they feel like they're not getting the support they need, that you don't want to engage or interact, a little bit more argumentative, maybe.
There are so many times that I think a parent feels that there is some sort of struggle, or a teacher feels that there is some sort of struggle, or some caregiver just feels there is some sort of struggle, but they don't know how to talk with their child about it. it can be hard to go to them and say like, hey, I've seen this, or like, hey, is this a problem? Because the expected answer is just like, no, there's no problem. There's no problem. Stay out of it. Right. Especially if you're looking at like adolescents and teenagers and stuff. And you don't want to be that parent who just jumps over your kid and goes straight to the school without talking to your kid. So other than just yelling at them for low school performance, what are some ways that parents can have that conversation with their kid?
I've seen that a lot, actually, where they may not necessarily be comfortable having that conversation, whether it's they know how the kid's going to respond or just their comfort level and maybe how they're going to respond. So I've opened it up to like, hey, if you all can't speak about it, maybe you all can start like a conversation journal where the thing that may be difficult to say out loud is a lot easier to say when you write it down. And you can write it down, and then you have one place that it goes, and that parent or the opposite person will respond. And this is something that never has to be spoken out loud, but can be a conversation on paper. And if you ever get to a point where you feel comfortable to talk about it out loud, then you get to choose to do that. And so it's been really cool, actually.
The person who starts that conversation, they can go back and forth in the journal as long as they want. But the other person doesn't bring up that conversation. Like it's up to the person who started that topic if they want to bring it up in person.
Correct.
That is so cool. Where does that come from?
So actually, it's a personal favorite of mine because I actually used it with my mom. Wonderful.
Yes, that's awesome. I don't think that they want to go get a journal and then write down in the journal as the first conversation, like, I feel like maybe you're struggling at school. And that be the first. So what are some ways, how can they get that process started? What's the first conversation?